And try not to be here too late. Ready?
Ready.
I'm
ready. I need some water first.
That should be interesting.
I
I saw him over here. Oh, your cone is going to dissolve.
I know.
Yeah.
And all that water.
Well, the water was in the cone, it's all.
But if it does,
It came through the cone and it's in the cup now?
Yeah.
Cool. Weird. I don't know. It was something I read in an article about helping kids with planting and stuff and putting it in an ice cream cone, and I'm like, that's not a bad idea, but I've never done it, so I don't know how it works.
Whether it works or not.
We're going to start with Mikamoka.
Because it's my song.
As we see Shabbat coming in and as we are welcoming a new month.
Your song?
God says we are like trees.
As you were singing that, I saw Miss Janie over there was dancing around the pool of Siloam, and she would put her foot in the water. And then the trees planted by the waters, their roots went into the pool of Siloam. So, Shalom, whatever you call it. So that we don't have to wait for an angel to come stir the water, that we can have our roots just going into it. And then it came to me, and we can stir the water.
Yeah.
And angels can accompany us to do it, but we can stir the water. We don't have to wait. And I'm never going to see that dance the same again. I'm going to see the healing pool as you're singing that.
Greg, do we have in there the song "You're the Lion of Judah"? I don't know if it's under Lion of Judah or "You're the Lion of Judah." We did it at Passover a couple years ago. Lion of Judah, the Lion of Judah, or you're the Lion of Judah, but, okay. Well, I know I printed it up for Passover, so it might be that we just never got it in the overheads. Well, we're gonna do it anyway, because it's the theme for this month, and it's a theme for this song, for the season.
What tribe is this one?
Judah.
Judah! Who?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that my other Jewish side from my grandfather is probably Judah because of the lion and the harp that represents their Scottish tribe. So we're kind of thinking.
You're the Lion of Judah, the Lamb who was slain. You ascended into heaven and evermore will reign. At the end of the age, when the earth you reclaim, you will gather the nations before you. And the eyes of all men will be fixed on the Lamb who was crucified. With wisdom and mercy and justice, you reign at your Father's side. And the angels will cry, Hail the Lamb, who was slain for the world, who lived come. And the earth will reply, You shall reign as the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. It's obvious I didn't practice this one.
I'm sorry, I love
That's okay. There's a shield in our hand and a sword at our side. There's fire in our spirits that cannot be denied. For the Father has told us, for these you have died, for the nations that gather before you. And the ears of all men need to hear of the Lamb who was crucified, who descended to hell yet was raised up to reign at his Father's side. And the angels will cry, Hail the Lamb, who was slain for the world, who lived come. And the earth will reply, You shall reign as the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. You're the Lion of Judah, the Lamb who was slain. You ascended to heaven and evermore will reign. At the end of the age, when the earth you reclaim, you will gather the nations before you. The eyes of all men will be fixed on the Lamb who was crucified. With wisdom and mercy and justice, you reign at your Father's side. And the angels will cry, Hail the Lamb, who was slain for the world, who lived come. And the earth will reply, You shall reign as the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. And the angels will cry, Hail the Lamb, who was slain for the world, who lived come. You found it. And the
I love this song.
You shall reign as the King of all kings
Lion and the Lamb. Lion and the Lamb.
Not right now, no. We're running way late. I already skipped 2 songs.
All right.
Because we're running late, and I don't want to be here all night. And the teaching tonight is really good, and I don't want to miss it, you know?
Yeah.
Judah's too much fun.
Judah's too much fun. Well, it's not just Judah, it's the whole month. So I have some verses if someone wants to read. I have a whole bunch of them.
Oh, my. Sure.
And like, yeah, so everyone take a couple and pass them around, okay?
It's like you have like 3 of them.
Well, yeah, everybody get like 3 of them. So,
Okay, I just 1, 2, 3. Rose will take a couple each. All Exodus.
don't read what they are, just take some.
Okay.
It's not pick and choose.
Do I need to
Okay.
get it out?
Yeah, because we're going to read
Okay.
scriptures.
I thought she gave them to us.
Here, give me some to give you, Rose.
I don't know how many, I forgot to count how many there are.
Here you go.
Thank you.
You'll need a Bible.
Thank you, and he could have 2, and I could have 2. That's it. Oh, shit, I didn't know it did.
Because they're Revelations.
It's not here, someone said I didn't want that one.
Yes.
Oh well. The last couple of months have been months of increasing joy. Remember we talked about Adar, and Adar is the month of increasing joy, and since we got 2 Adars this year, we got 2 months to increase our joy. And this is the month where our joy breaks forth into praise.
Hallelujah.
Okay? Our joy breaks forth into praise. We move from a season where God was working behind the scenes in the story of Esther. He worked behind the scenes and made things work out. But this time, in this month, in this season, he's not going to work behind the scenes anymore. He's going to work miracles out front for all the world to see. And that's part of what this month is about. Okay? And this month is the month that is to be counted as the first of the months for you all, for all of us, okay? It's the first of the months, the head of the months. This is the month of spring. We plant crops in the spring, right? We planted a seed in the spring. It's the month of redemption. It's a month of deliverance. It's the month of Passover. The month of Passover. The month of Nissan or Aviv. Are you trying to turn me up or? Oh, okay. Turn me down. It's one of my favorite months. I get excited about this stuff, you know. This month, the month of Nissan, also called the month of Aviv, makes all the difference in the world. It changes everything, and that's why it's such a good month. It's thought that the name Nissan might come from either the word Nitzan, which means bud, as in the budding trees, or it could come from Nesam, which means miracles. Remember, we have the Nes Gadol, you know, the miracle series, but the multiplied miracles. Nissan. Prior to Babylon, though, this month was called Aviv. It's the only month that had a biblical name prior to Babylon, where we have it specifically named in Torah. It is to be called Aviv, and Av, Eve. It's an Aleph, Vet, Yod, Vet. Okay, and the Aleph Bet, Yod, Bet, which Aleph Vet means Av, and who remembers what that means in Hebrew? Father, Avraham, Av. Abba means daddy, and that's Aleph Bet Aleph, Abba. And in this case, Av means father, and the Yod Bet at the end, it means 12. It's a father of the 12. So Aviv is the father month. It's the head month. It's the father of all the months. Every month follows after it. Tishri is the head of the counting of the years. We count our years from Tishri, which is in the fall, but we count the months from Aviv. Tishri is the cycle of, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Tishri is the cycle of the years. It's a linear time from the creation to the end of the age. That's Tishri, the creation, the end of the age. But Aviv, this month, is the month of the circular time. It begins the cycle of redemption, or the cycle of the festivals always begin in this month. And those festivals go in a cycle, that it's not a beginning and an end like time will be. Regular time, the years have a beginning, the years have an ending, but our salvation is eternal. It's a cycle, and it's a circle, and it goes on forever. And so this is the season of the beginning of that. Who has Exodus chapter 12? Actually, we're going to read several in Exodus 12. So this is Exodus 12, 1 and 2. Would like you to read it loud for all of us to hear. Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. Who has verse 1 and 2?
Now the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, this month shall be the beginning of months for you. It is to be the first month of the year to you.
So we know that it may not be the first month of the year for anyone else. But if you belong to Israel, then it's your first month. Okay? So it's a special for that. And this month, by the way, we have 3 festivals. All this month. We get to celebrate 3 different festivals. Pesach, aka the night of Passover. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is a 7-day festival. And First Fruits, which is in the midst of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So, and they kind of blend together. But that's 3 separate festivals according to the Word. And we'll go to Leviticus in a few minutes and talk about it, but throughout in Leviticus chapter 23, it lays it out with all 3 of them as being distinct and yet right there together. But first, let's look at Passover in this passage here too. Unleavened bread. The steps for the original Passover were pretty clear. Exodus 12, who has 3 through 6.
Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, they are each one to take a lamb for themselves, according to their father's households, a lamb for each household. Now, if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his neighbor nearest to his house are to take one, according to the number of persons in them. According to what each man should eat, you are to divide the lamb. Your lamb shall be an unblemished male, a year old. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel is to kill it at twilight.
So on the 10th of the month, we choose the lamb. And the lamb comes and lives in your house until 14th, gives you just enough time to fall in love with it. And then it is to be slaughtered. And then he explains what they were to do that first night specifically. The first time celebrating Passover was done a specific way. We don't do it all that way anymore, but the first time it was. And who has verses 7 through 13 of Exodus 12?
They are to take the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the crossbeam of the houses where they will eat it. They are to eat the meat that night, roasted over a fire. With matzah and bitter herbs they are to eat it. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled with water, but only roasted with fire, its head with its legs and its innards. So let nothing of it remain until the morning. Whatever remains until the morning you are to burn with fire. Also you are to eat it this way, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. You are to eat it in haste. It is the Adonai's Passover. For I will go through the land of Egypt on that night, and strike down every firstborn, both men and animals, and I will execute judgments against all the gods of Egypt. I am Adonai. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, so there will be no plague among you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt.
These are instructions for that first night, very specific instructions, where to put the blood, that they're supposed to stand with their staff in their hands. We don't do it that way anymore. That's not how Passover is celebrated today. We don't put blood of the lamb on the door. We don't eat it standing up, and typically many places don't have a lamb for their meal. They'll have a shank bone to represent the lamb, but there's no temple, so there's no sacrifice that can be made. And this isn't, we no longer are doing it exactly that way. This was a one-time thing where they were supposed to do it that way. We also don't burn up our leftovers. We can take them home and eat them later, or we can share them the next night. We're not making it as a sacrifice in the temple or the tabernacle, but we are remembering it, and we do remember the Passover. I talked to a pastor once here in town who said that they did Passover once. Yeah, they all stood there with their staffs and their robes, and it was kind of fun, but he never thought it would be, it really wasn't that important. And I said, then you haven't done Passover. Well, we did it the way the Bible says. I said, no, you did it the way they were taught to do it originally, what they had to do that night to save themselves. But you didn't do the memorial. You see, in verse 14, he then tells us that it is to be a memorial, not an exact replica, but a memorial. Who has 14 through 20?
Now this day will be a memorial to you, and you shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord. Throughout your generations, you are to celebrate it as a permanent ordinance. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, but on the first day you shall remove leaven from your houses. For whoever eats anything leavened from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. On the first day you shall have a holy assembly, and another holy assembly on the 7th day. No work at all shall be done on them, except what must be eaten by every person. That alone may be prepared by you. You shall also observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this very day I brought your hosts out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations as a permanent ordinance. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. 7 days there shall be no leaven found in your houses, for whoever eats what is leavened, that person shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is an alien or a native of the land. Leavened, in all your dwellings you shall eat unleavened bread.
So there are several things that she said that when she read it, she highlighted them. They're all things that I have written down here as highlights for us to remember. One, it is stated more than once that this is to be a lasting ordinance. It is stated more than once that this is permanent. It's stated more than once there's to be nothing with leavening, nothing leavened in your houses, nothing with chametz. Chametz is leaven. It's stated also in verse 20, no matter where you live. I have verse 20 here, so where is it? Anyway, that in this passage it talks about it doesn't matter where you live. This isn't just to be done in Israel, not just to be done when you enter the land. It's not only in the land of Egypt, in the land of Israel. It is to be observed throughout our generations. Throughout the generations. We are to do it. It repeats the 7 days. It repeats the dates, the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, all these days, right? From the evening of the 14th to the evening of the 21st day of the month. That would be 7 full days. There's a sacred assembly on the first day. And there's a sacred assembly on the 7th day. Which is kind of an interesting thing because I had not heard of that. And I read this in the Word and I went, wait a minute, we do Passover, but what's the seventh day? And I did some looking into it. I tried to find something about it. And I did find one reference to a rabbi that was in Russia just before they went through in the pogroms and kicked out all the Jews. And he was teaching that last day, that the first day is the first day of unleavened bread, that we are celebrating the Lamb and God's deliverance out of Egypt. But the last day, when we all get together and we celebrate, we are having a meal for Messiah. And he instituted in his group the meal of Messiah. He died in concentration camp.
Wow.
And that whole thing kind of died out with his group that got killed off. But it's an interesting concept, and it's one that I've thought about, and I've thought, okay, how are we supposed to do this? And I don't have an answer to that yet. So if God gives you a download as to how we're supposed to celebrate that seventh day, because the first day is supposed to be a holy day, a Sabbath day, and the last day is supposed to be a holy day, a Sabbath day, and you're supposed to have a solemn assembly on both days, or an assembly on both days. Now we're going to jump to Leviticus, where it explains them a little bit more. Leviticus chapter 23. Because I want us to understand what it is we're doing when we celebrate Passover and how it works. And I want to get through this fairly quickly. Who has Leviticus 23 verses 4 through 8?
These are the appointed feasts of Adonai, holy convocations which you are to proclaim in their appointed season. During the first month, on the 14th day of the month, in the evening, is Adonai's Passover. On the 15th day of the same month is the feast of Matzah to Adonai. For 7 days you are to eat matzah. On the first day you are to have a holy convocation, and you shall do no regular work. Instead, you are to present an offering made by fire to Adonai for 7 days. On the seventh day is a holy convocation, when you are to do no regular work.
Okay, so the timing of it's kind of interesting, because Passover begins, it says, on the evening of the 14th day, right? At sunset. During the first month, on the 14th day of the month, in the evening, is the Lord's Passover. The 15th is the first day of unleavened bread. When does the day begin in Jewish thought? The evening. So Passover and the first day of unleavened bread are the same day. It's the same day. I know a lot of people have been confused over that, because the 14th during the day is when you're doing all the preparations. The lambs were sacrificed. All of the work was done during the day. At evening, at twilight, the lamb was to be slain and cooked and eaten during the evening. And then that also is the beginning of the 7 days of matzah, of unleavened bread.
What's the offering by fire?
Huh?
What's the offering by fire they were doing every day? In verse 8.
During the month on the 14th, and the evenings on the first day have a holy convocation and present the offering made by fire. That's done on the first day.
It says for 7 days
For 7 days.
shall present an offering by fire. What's that?
In the temple.
Oh, so that's something you were doing. in the
That
temple.
was done in the temple, I believe. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. We'll see that there are offerings done every single day from the end of the first day all the way up to Shavuot, Pentecost. Passover begins the end of the 14th day at sunset. The unleavened bread begins on the 15th, which begins at the same time on the evening of the 14th. So we have two festivals that kind of coincide together. And then we have another festival. Who has Leviticus 23, 9 through 14?
Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and say to them, When you enter the land which I am going to give to you, and reap its harvest, then you shall bring in the sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. He shall wave the sheaf before the Lord for you to be accepted on the day after the Sabbath. The priest shall wave it. Now, on the day when you wave the sheaf, you shall offer a male lamb 1 year old without defect for a burnt offering to the Lord. Its grain offering shall then be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering by fire to the Lord for a soothing aroma, with its drink offering, 1/4 of a hin of wine, until this same day, until you have brought in the offering of your God. You shall eat neither bread, nor roasted grain, nor new growth. It is to be a perpetual statute throughout your generations in all your dwelling places.
And reading through these instructions are part of why I think that the Pharisees were probably right in terms of when the Habikarim offering is to begin. Because it says in here that the first grain, it's a grain offering, right? And it is to be made on the day after the Sabbath. Which Sabbath? Because you see, the first day of unleavened bread is a Sabbath. The last day of unleavened bread is a Sabbath. But then there's the weekly Sabbath that's going to fall in the middle of it, somewhere. Because if you got 7 days in a row, if you start 7 days on Tuesday, you're going to have a Sabbath, and then, Tuesday's a Sabbath, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sabbath, Sunday, Monday, Sabbath, right? So that, which Sabbath? Because there's more than one Sabbath. At the time of Yeshua, it was disagreed about quite strongly with the different groups. And one of the groups, the Pharisees, who were the ones who were supposed to oversee the temple and the administrations at the temple, and they were the ones that were in charge of all of pretty much most of the synagogues. The Pharisaical system was the system of the synagogues. They said that the morning after the Sabbath would have been the morning after the first day of unleavened bread. So if you have the day of unleavened bread being the 15th, then the first day of this offering would be the 16th in the morning. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? It gets complicated. The Sadducees, however, said that it would be not then, but after the weekly Sabbath. Wherever the weekly Sabbath fell in the 7-day festival, that the next morning was when you were supposed to offer the Habikarim, or the first fruit offering. It's a handful of barley, a handful of grain. Notice it also says, when you are in the land. This is an offering that is only made when you are in the land of Israel. This isn't an offering that is made in other places. It's only done in Israel. When you have come into the land, and I give you, and you reap its harvest, then bring me a portion of the first fruit, of the first harvest. By the way, the Essenes said it was on the last day, the morning after the last day of unleavened bread. So 3 groups, 3 different days. And the funny thing to me is Yeshua never made a position on any of them. He never said anything about which one. He did not do any of that. He didn't try to correct them in their discussions of all of that stuff. The ones who won out in the long run, the calendar system that we have today, has the Habikarim beginning the morning after the first day of unleavened bread. So the lamb is slaughtered at twilight on the 14th. The 15th is the first day. The Habikarim would be in the morning following that. Okay? Why is this important? Because these festivals are a picture of the death, the burial, and the resurrection of our Messiah. The death, the burial, and the resurrection of our Messiah. Yeshua was the first fruit of the resurrection. He is the first fruit of the resurrection. Today the calendars follow that pattern. Until Yeshua returns, until our Messiah comes and sets everything straight, as a grouping, we've agreed to follow the standard calendar. Why? Because Yeshua didn't correct them on it in his day, so who are we to think we should? What kind of pride do we have? If he didn't worry about it, he didn't fight over it, when he comes back, he will restore all things, and it will all be done in an exact time and order. Until then, let's at least understand what the order is. The first fruits is the day after which we may partake of any new grain in the new year. You couldn't have new bread. You've gotten rid of all of the bread, right? The chametz is all gone. And this is part of why I think it might be that one, because you have, until you wave the offering, you can't eat any new bread. Even unleavened bread is bread. So you make new bread. The old leaven is gone. You have to go to the new. Passover is seen as a picture of our salvation, with Yeshua being the lamb. The days of unleavened bread are the days of purification or sanctification. And by the way, historically, it took the Israelites a week to reach the Red Sea, 7 days. So they leave the night that the lamb is slain. Early in the morning, they left. 7 days later, they went through the Red Sea. The waters parted. And it says they were baptized into a new way of life. One of the important aspects of the waving of the first grain is that begins a counting. And every single day, from that day on, there will be a counting. And in this, it's interesting because this month, in the month of Aviv, we have Passover, we have unleavened bread, we have the first fruits offering, and we have the beginning of the counting of the Omer. And the Omer is a portion, or a hand breadth portion of the grain. Literally, they would just reach in and grab a handful and pull it. And every day a handful of grain was taken from the barley harvest. And every day for 50 days, this is waved in the temple and burned in the fire as an offering to God. And the next festival comes when that is completed. Paul tells us that Yeshua is the first fruits of many brethren, the first of the resurrection. The barley harvest actually represents the Jewish nation, and Yeshua, who is the firstborn of the Jewish nation, is the first resurrected. The sages say that in Nissan we were redeemed from Egypt, and in Nissan we shall be redeemed. If we see Yeshua as Messiah, Jesus as Redeemer, we can see that that has already been fulfilled. In Nissan, they were redeemed from Egypt. In Nissan, Messiah came and died and brought our redemption. The day is coming when they will look on the one they've pierced, and they will recognize the Lamb, as the book of Revelation says, the Lamb slain before time. Until then, they continue to look for him, right? So we mentioned earlier the tribe of this month, and the tribe of the month is the tribe of Judah, which is amazing to me. It's very fitting because Judah is the king. Judah is the tribe of Messiah. Judah is the tribe the Messiah comes through. So this month should be the perfect month for Judah to be honored and recognized. Judah was not the firstborn. But when his older brothers Simeon and Levi violated their positions, then that place came to Judah. His name is Yehuda, or Judah, who has Genesis 29:35. So we can learn what it means.
And she conceived again and bore a son and said, "This time I will praise the Lord." Therefore she named him Judah. Then she stopped bearing.
Judah means to give thanks or to speak praise. She named him praise. She named him praise. What an awesome name to have, isn't it? To be that which is praised. Genesis 49, verses 8 through 12. we have Jacob giving his blessing to his son Judah. Let's hear what that says.
Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's son shall bow down to you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have come up. You have gone up. He couches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion who dares rouse him up. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Simeon comes, or till Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. He ties his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are dull from wine, and his teeth white from milk.
This version says his eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Different translations will say some different things, because honestly, some of the Hebrew they don't understand.
That one sounded like you drank too much wine.
What?
That one sounded like you drank too much wine.
Yeah, it did. It sounded like you drank too much wine. The word Shiloh, he said, until Shiloh comes. This translation says, until he to whom it belongs will come. There's arguments among the rabbis of what Shiloh means. But Shiloh means the Redeemer. The Redeemer. Until the Redeemer comes.
I have a son named Shiloh Judah, by the way, named after this.
Yeah. Until Shiloh comes. The Redeemer.
Prince of Peace.
Yeah. Shiloh can also mean peace. So it can mean those things. Jacob's blessing over his son, it is from this blessing that it's recognized that Judah is the king. He is the one who has the right to rule as king over Israel. Their kings were to come from Judah. But did you notice the reference at the bottom here to the donkey or the colt? Okay. A hint. When you're studying privately out of Torah or out of the prophets, anytime you see a colt or a donkey, specifically a young donkey, look for the picture of Messiah that is there. Because it will represent, whoever is riding that donkey represents Messiah. And there will be a picture of Messiah in it. When Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a young donkey, on the colt of a donkey, it was a direct reference to this. There was no missing it. Everyone in Israel knew what that meant. It meant he was coming in as Messiah, and they knew it. He was claiming rights to be king.
Wow.
Why a donkey for the king? To keep him humble. Unlike the nations around them, whose kings all rode on these big horses and powerhouse and all that stuff, the king of Israel rode on a donkey, representing the fact that we know that before God we are nothing. Our great and our power is in God, not in our horses, not in our chariots, but in the God that we serve. So the donkey was to symbolize humility and to be one who is a messenger of peace, And yet it says that his garments will be dipped in blood, right? So it's kind of interesting. Moses' blessing gives a little bit of a twist to it that I have always found very interesting. Deuteronomy 33:7. Who has Deuteronomy 33:7?
And this he said about Judah. Hear, O Lord, the cry of Judah. Bring him to his people. With his own hands he defends his cause. Oh, be this help against his foes.
Wait a minute, isn't he supposed to be the king? And yet it says here that Judah is crying out for his people. Hear the voice of Judah, bring him to his people. His hands contend for him. Judah's the king, but Moses says he's not with his people. But Judah cries to be with his people, and God hears him, and with his hands he defends his cause. Again, let me requote the prophet. Zechariah 12:10 says, they shall look on the one whom they have pierced. Psalm 22:16 tells us exactly how he is pierced. that he is pierced in his hands and his feet. So his hands contend for his place. Who has John 20, verses 24 through 28? The Gospel of John.
Now Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe it." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God."
Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." And the next verse says, and Yeshua said, "Blessed you have, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." He does not tell Thomas, "Don't worship me." I want you to notice that. Every time an angel presents themselves to a human being and that human bows before them, they say, "Don't worship me. I'm a messenger." Thomas worshipped him, and Yeshua received it. It tells us a little something about who he is, doesn't it? But I find it interesting. With his hands, he defended himself. "Look, Thomas, put your fingers in my hands. Put them there. Here's what I've done." Today, Messiah, the son of Judah, is not with his people. Most Jewish people do not recognize the rightful king of Israel, Yeshua HaMashiach. But again, the prophet says the day is coming that they will look upon him whom they have pierced, and they will recognize him. This month is all about the Lamb, right? The Lamb that is slaughtered for the salvation of the people, to bring them out of Egypt. But it is also about Judah, who is the lion. I will tell you, it's about the lion and the lamb. And guess what? The lion is the lamb. The lamb is the lion. Who has Revelation chapter 5, verses 1 through 5?
I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a book, written inside and on the back, sealed up with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the book and to break its seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the book or to look into it. Then I began to weep greatly because no one was found worthy to open the book or to look into it. And one of the elders said to me, "Stop weeping. Behold, the lion that is from the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has overcome so as to open the book and its 7 seals."
The lion, the root of David. Judah is the house from which David came, the first rightful king of Israel. Yes, Saul was crowned king, but he was king before time. That was not God's first choice. David wasn't old enough yet. Saul was crowned king because the people demanded a king now. God had someone better waiting, had someone better and a better timing. But they demanded, and they got Saul out of the tribe of Benjamin. And they found out it would have been better to wait for the one from the tribe of Judah. David of the tribe of Judah, Yeshua, his descendant. Who has verses 6 through 10 out of Revelation 5?
And I saw between the throne with the 4 living creatures and the elders a lamb standing as if slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. And he came, and he took it out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And when he had taken the book, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having each one a harp, and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song, saying, Worthy art thou to take the book, and to break its seals, for thou wast slain, and didst purchase for God with thy blood men from every tribe and tongue, and people and nation. And thou hast made them to be a kingdom and priests to our God, and they will reign upon the earth.
The elders say, Behold the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and he looks and he sees a lamb. Yeah, the lion is the lamb. This month is the month of deliverance. We see the lamb in the festivals, we see the lamb in the crucifixion, but we also see the lion in the tribe that is honored. We recognize that the lion becomes the lamb becomes the lion. He's not done. He came as the lamb the first time. The next time he comes, he will be a roaring lion. He will come to conquer the earth. He will come to be the king that he is supposed to be. He's not finished. This is the beginning of months. This will be a culmination of months as well. In this month, we have the beginning, but the day of the king is not yet. We do begin counting, and we will watch for the fulfillment in the giving of Torah and in the giving of the Holy Spirit. But even that is not complete. It's not done until fall. It's not done until the fall festivals and the crowning of the king that happens at Yom Teruah, the day of trumpets. But what we know now is that the day is coming. The king will come. The lion will come. Who has Revelation 19:11 through 16?
I do. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on it is called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he judges and wages war. His eyes are a flame of fire, and on his head are many diadems, and he has a name written on him, which no one knows except himself. He is clothed with a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which are in heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, were following him on white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword, so that with it he may strike down the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress of the fierce wrath of God the Almighty. And on his robe and on his thigh he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
Doesn't this describe the blessing over Judah? The color of the robe and everything? It's there. Our Messiah is the lion. There's the day that he came in on the donkey, but the day is coming, he's coming in on the horse. He's coming in as a conqueror. Right now we look to the Lamb. We celebrate the deliverance that has come, and we will be celebrating that all this week. But we want to always, always remember that the Lamb slain becomes the lion. We can't lose hope of that. We can't lose track of that. We can't think of him as just dead, you know? He came to bring us deliverance so that he could be our king, so that he could rule over us in righteousness and in love and in mercy. And he becomes our king. As we were reading out of this, where it says, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, I just kept hearing the song in my head, and so I'm going to sing it real quick. And you probably all know it, and if you know it, you want to sing it with me. It's very simple. Thou art worthy, thou art worthy, thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory, glory and honor, glory and honor and power. For thou hast created, hast all things created. Thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are created. Thou art worthy, O Lord. He is worthy. He's worthy of our praise. He is worthy of our blessing. As we celebrate this month and as we go about this month, let's remember that it is about deliverance and cleansing and becoming the people who are waiting for our King. And blow the shofars and declare the month beginning, because the month actually begins tonight. Lord our God and God of our Father, blessing, grant us long life, a life of peace, of good, of blessing, of sustenance, of vigor, a life marked by a reverence for you and a dread of sin, a life free from shame and reproach, a life of prosperity and honor, a life in which the love of Torah and the fear of you, O God, animate us, a life in which our heartfelt desires are fulfilled for good. May he who performed miracles for our fathers and liberated them from slavery to freedom, may he quickly liberate us and gather our exiles from the four corners of the earth, even all of Israel. May the Holy One, blessed be he, grant this month to us and to all of the house of Israel for life, for peace, for gladness, for joy, for deliverance, and for consolation. And let us all say, Amen. The word says that the times of your anointed, of your feasts, times of your rejoicing, you are to sound the shofar over the burnt offerings and the fellowship offerings. They will be a memorial for you before your God. I am the Lord your God. None of our food was burnt, thank you, Lord. But it is a fellowship offering, and so we will blow the shofar tonight. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and has instructed us to hear the sound, the voice of the shofar.